Machiavelli wasn't looking, panting obviously, as if it would help. Without stopping what he was saying, Mr. Mack had paused to flip open a book on his desk and peer down at it. He shoved a bookmark into it and turned back to the blackboard, starting to write something else. How can this not be bothering him when he's got a whole suit on? Kit thought. Doesn't he have sweat glands? The cooling system clunked several times more, to no effect. Kit made a face, glanced at the clock. It seemed hopelessly stuck at 2:20, and the class wasn't going to let out until 2:45, which from where Kit was sitting felt like at least a year away. I can't stand it anymore, and anyway, none of them will notice. Very quietly, Kit reached down into the book bag beside his desk and pulled out his wizard's manual. At the moment, the manual looked like his history textbook, which was perfectly normal since earlier this year Kit had stuck a chameleon spell on the manual's exterior, causing it to imitate the proper textbook for whatever class he happened to be in. Kit turned idly through the manual's pages to the one that held the spell he'd first crafted to do repairs on the school's cooling system back when it broke down during the hot spell in April. He'd had to use the spell several times since, and he'd had to rework it every time because engineers from other schools kept coming over to work on the system, and every time they did, they disrupted whatever quick fix Kit had managed to implement the last time he'd done the fix-it spell. Gotta get in here sometime during vacation and do a real fix on the whole system, Kit thought. Otherwise things will get even worse when the cold weather comes around. The words of the spell, in the long, curved strokes and curlicue hooks and crooks of the wizardly speech, laid themselves out before him on the manual page. Hovering above them, faint and hardly to be seen, was the shadow of the camouflage page that any casual, non-wizardly observer would see if he or she looked at the book. There was, of course, no question of saying the spell out loud in a situation like this. Gonna be kind of a strain doing it on the quiet, Kit thought. But this heat's just too much. And what's it like on the other side of the building where the sun's hitting? The kids over there must be dying. Let's just call this my good deed for the day. He closed his eyes for a moment, working to make the requisite quiet zone inside his mind, and then opened his eyes again and started silently reading the words of the wizardry in the speech. Slowly, the wizardry started to work. A silence started to fall around Kit as the universe seemed to lean in around him, listening to the spell. In the growing silence, Kit watched the room around him seem to fade, while the normally invisible layout of the cooling system now started to become visible, glowing like a wireframe diagram that stretched out and away from the history classroom. Kit didn't need to go hunting through the system to find the source of the problem. He knew where it was, and anyway, the locator functions of the spell would have shown him the duct near the heart of the building, just this side of the heat pump in the school's engineering center. Kit peered at the duct in his mind, concentrating on the source of the problem. A vent shutter that looked something like a small, boxy Venetian blind. Okay, he said silently in the speech. What is it this time? The guy came again, said the vent shutter buried deep in the duct, and he tightened those bolts up too much. Said was, of course, not the best way to put it. Inanimate objects don't communicate the way organic ones do, but to a wizard like Kit, who was good at communicating with such objects, the way the information passed was enough like talking and listening to think of it that way. The wizardry showed Kit the bolts that the vent shutter meant, a series of them, up and down each side of it, fixing its shutter hinges to the inside of the duct. Got it, Kit said silently. Okay, here we go. He turned his attention to the bolts. Come on, guys, lighten up. You don't need all that tension. Just let yourselves unwind. Half of wizardry was persuading people, creatures, or objects to do what you wanted them to. The rest of it was knowing what words in the speech would get the intention across. And by now, Kit knew the words entirely too well. Slowly, the wizardry showed him the bolts loosening up one by one. Not too much, he said in his mind. We don't want the shutter to fall out. Yeah, that's it. Just like that. The last bolt rotated a quarter turn. That's the ticket.